Sir?
Well, good to see you.
Pleasure, man.
Tell me something. How did your concussion come to you?
How did it come to? Well, I got that call that actors love to get. It's late on a Friday afternoon, and I get the call that says Ridley Scott's on the phone for you. I'm like,
That's a good call.
That's a good.
Yeah.
See, because you know when it's Friday, that's when you know someone has a screenplay and they've turned it in, and everyone's going to read over the weekend. Yeah. So I got the call from Ridley, and he said I've got a gift for you, and he sent me Concussion, and I read it immediately, and I remember thinking, this ain't no damn gift. I was like, I'm a football dad. Yeah.
Right.
For me, it was a beautiful screenplay, but it opened up a huge conflict for me.
Did you know about what had happened before? Did you know the story a little bit of him?
Really vaguely.
Okay.
Really vaguely, I knew. My son played football for 4 years, and during that time, I had never heard about the concussion issue at all.
At all. Okay.
So it was part of what really inspired me and made me want to do the film, forced me to have to do the film, is because as a parent, I had no idea.
Right.
I had no idea that there was an issue with repetitive head trauma in football.
Right.
So it was quite a revelation.
And so did you like then meet the? Did you meet the director first? Yeah.
I met the director and I met Dr. Bennett Omalu, the director Peter Landesman and Dr. Bennett Omalu back to back on that Tuesday.
Oh, that's...
And Peter Landesman is a investigative journalist, right? So he was rock solid. And then I met Dr. Bennett Omalu. He's a Nigerian immigrant, and he said something to me in a line we used in the movie. He said, as a little boy growing up, heaven was here and America was here. And he said to him, America was the place where God sent all of his favorite people. And I was like, oh man.
And that's in the movie. That's in the movie.
Yeah, we used that. We used that in the movie. So it was after that meeting, I had to. I had to make this movie. I couldn't find a way out of it, being a huge football fan. So it was tough.
Good for you.
So how did Sicario come to you?
Sicario, I got the script. I read the script. I thought it was original. I've done many movies that take place in that world, the drug wars. And then I got a meeting to meet with Denis Villeneuve, the director. And I met with him. His enthusiasm, his vision, his sensitivity to the project, so to the whole topic, that convinced me. And then the cast, Josh Brolin and Emily Blunt, that also had an impact on my decision to make it. And last but not least, the director of photography, Roger Deakins.
Roger Deakins,
because it's like
I'm a real Roger Deakins groupie.
I know, me too.
He asked me to leave him alone the other night. It was
really?
The first time I met him.
He gave you an elbow?
I was like, hey man, listen, I love what you. He said, well, thanks man, please come on, you're embarrassed.
Okay, that's good.
I just love the look of that.
And his sensitivity is great, like every department in the movie, from the wardrobe to the props to the hair and makeup, they all were like, Roger Deakins. Roger Deakins. He's on the set. He's on the set. So everybody was like going to work. Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
So that's those three elements put together. The script, the director, the actors, and Roger Deakins was kind of like what made me want to do it.
Yeah. I always have a hard time with characters whose basic mindset, their basic life perspective is that far different from mine. Like, what is your process for finding what's inside that kind of a mind?
Well, It's a tough question, Will. But I try to if I don't agree with the character, if I'm playing a killer or a bad guy, which I've played many of those, I try to understand them. I mean, and the character in Sicario is very conflicted because he's good. I understand him, but then his actions they just get out of hand.
Right.
And but I understand why they would get out of hand. The character, just gets out of hand, and he's got that rage in him that if you don't gauge it, if you don't gauge it, the man can turn into a monster.
Right.
You know, to me, it's always really interesting. And you played Ali, and you did a great job. But here's a boxer, right? Yeah. And his objective on the ring is to take that guy down.
Absolutely.
But then, after the fight, they hug each other.
Yes, absolutely.
And it's like, and then he walks out, and he's like, he can gauge it.
Yeah.
Imagine if Ali couldn't gauge it, couldn't like control it, and just went out and started punching people.
Yeah.
But so my guy has that gauging problem, and so, but I understood it, and then once you understand it, then. If the director, if you like his work, then you can then work on that. And I might have concerns about the character and bring it up to the director and go through it. But I think that what do you do? What's your approach to that?
For me, I start to try to figure out. What he wants. Like for me, desire is right at the center. Like what is the thing that the character can't live without? So I started with this character, and it usually takes me a few minutes to talk to somebody, and you get a sense of what is their main drive. And for him, when I connected to the idea that what he wanted was to be accepted as an American. And I start with the basic three questions: what does he want? Why does he want it? And what's going to happen if he doesn't get it? That usually that's a good into psychology. And what does he want? He wants to be accepted as an American. Why does he want that? Because in his mind, America is where God sends all of his favorite people. Right. And then what's going to happen if he doesn't get it? He's going to feel like he's not deserving of the blessings that he's been given.
You're talking about the character, what he wants, and how you get into his head. And there was a scene in the movie that I really enjoyed it, and it was that moment when you're with Alec Baldwin, and he says, "I'm going to talk to the NFL. You can't talk to the NFL." Yeah. And then there was that jealousy, and that was a really good moment because you made him human by having that moment, because to me it was like, that was a good angle because you made him. We saw that side that he got jealous. He felt like, you're gonna take all the work that I've been doing, and you're gonna take all the credit.
You take all the credit.
Yeah.
And that was a really good moment for me, coming back to the idea that he wants to be accepted as an American. And being able to speak in front of the NFL was everything.
That was the dream.
That was the dream.
And suddenly, sit down.
You're
not playing today.
You're not playing today. Right. That thing was really huge. And when I can latch into that desire, I'm always looking for the one thing that covers the entire movie. Right. And we were talking earlier, and for me, when I was 15, my girlfriend cheated on me. And from that moment, in this bizarre psychological twist, I wanted to be the most famous entertainer on earth because I believed that your girlfriend couldn't cheat on you. Right. So it's that really bizarre psychological leap. And I'm always looking for that in my characters. What's the bizarre psychological leap they make based on some trauma?
Right. When I've seen you work with your voice in Ali, and how did you go about for Dr. Omalu at Nigerian accent?
Yeah, that one was terrifying. It's so drastically different from the sounds of American English.
Right.
So and it's also Nigerian is based on British. So not only is there adjustment in sound, there's adjustment in the choice of words, right? So in America, we'll say he went crazy, but the Brits say he went mad. So it was like finding those little things that's just one thing is the sound, and then another thing is the actual words, the origin of
so
it.
he went from Nigeria to England and then to the U.S.
Yes, absolutely. So it was a delicate balance for me. But as a child, I was always a mimic. It was always fun for me to make jokes and make fun of people. So I always practiced mimicking. The thing that I've never done that what you did in the Usual Suspects, right? So like that. So where does that come from? Like, where do you decide that that's the sound? Like, that's the texture. That's what you're going to do.
The decision to go that far on the character was actually from Dustin Hoffman in Dick Tracy.
Oh wow!
I had just seen Dick Tracy, and he played the character Mumbles.
Yeah.
And just like you, I think as a young actor or a young person, you mimic.
Right.
You mimic whatever.
Right.
So I play with that, the voice and play with like different things but the decision, what gave me the strength to take the chance and go out and try to do this voice or whatever was basically from watching Dustin Hoffman do it. And it was like a tiny part, and for me, it really was one of the characters in Dick Tracy that really called my attention. So that was like the ignition, to like throw myself out there and do it. And also, in the Usual Suspects, my character really died on page 37. So it was like it didn't matter what he said. So it's like
not for the whole movie. Who were you when you got started? Who were you modeling yourself after? Or who were the people that you're like, all right, I want that?
There's like three stages of it. There's like when before I was an actor, when I started going to movies, there were three. It was I like movies of Robert De Niro, movies of Eddie Murphy, and movies of Richard Gere.
Wow.
So those were like the movies the guys that I kind of like looked. Before I started acting, and I was already going to the movies on my own and paying it. And then after when I started acting, then it was like, then it was Pacino, Marlon Brando. And then I started discovering Humphrey Bogart and a lot of actors, Anthony Quinn, a lot of actors that are not around anymore. They still move me, I can watch, a good Anthony Quinn movie or a Brando movie, it's just like I just can't watch it now, and black and white doesn't bug me. But that's, and then there were other young actors that were doing stuff that really kind of like were a bit more contemporary, like Sean Penn, Gary Oldman. They were doing this they were going out there and taking chances, and that's when I started acting. That's what those were like actors that I kind of like. I want to mold it. Like that, or like their pattern. What about you?
My early life and desire to be an entertainer was all Julius Erving and Eddie Murphy. Like for me, I grew up in Philadelphia, so 1983 76ers world champion. And Julius Erving was and still is such an absolute gentleman. He had one fight
With
Larry Bird.
Bird.
Right?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
you
yes,
know,
yes, yes.
you know, it's like in his entire NBA career, he lost himself one time. You know, and I would hear him speak, right? So you know, they go back in the locker room and they interview the players, you know, and you know, he was a guy who was so eloquent. He said, well, you know, I felt that, you know, tonight wasn't our night. We worked really hard. I have to give it up for the Celtics. You know, they were much more focused. They protected the ball. You know, I'm like, wow, you know, right? Because he sounded, you know, he sounded like one of the coaches. You know, so you have a black guy, and I was used to, you know, because the ref was all over us. The ref was all over us. They wouldn't let us play. You know, so for me, it's the referee. The referees really stole the game from, you know, so it was like this image of this, you know, perfectly eloquent, you know, black man.
That could fly.
That could fly, that could fly. Yeah. And then when I started thinking about moving towards acting, it was, you know, right at the heart of Raw and Delirious and 48 Hours.
Right.
You know.
I mean, that's a hell of a run.
Oh my, Eddie, I was like, oh my God, I want that. I want that. And it was that combination really formed the early parts of my career. Have you ever struggled to find a character? Have you ever gotten closer and closer to set and hadn't had it yet?
You know, I don't think I ever find them. You know, it just keeps evolving. You know, I always feel like you know, to be honest with you, I always feel like I get the closest I can get to the character on the last day of shooting, on the last take. Absolutely. It's like, let's start the movie now.
Let's start. Exactly.
And I will get it. Yeah. But you know, one thing is like that I'm kind of like that I wish I could learn earlier, because I used to beat myself for that. Yeah. Nothing is perfect.
No, absolutely.
Nothing is perfect. So you know, I struggle with that. What I try to do, and maybe the only maybe medicine for that might be, you know, put as much time as you can before you do it.
Right.
Or work as hard as you can while you're doing it, and stay focused, no matter if you have good days or bad days. You know.
How much?
Maybe that's the medicine I try
to go
stay keep my hands on it.
Stay on
Even
it.
if this is a disaster and I feel it's a disaster, just don't let go.
Do you plan things that you want to do going in? Like, so do you have different ways, or you just go and let it rip?
I plan, but I learned early on that that's going to go out the window.
Way out the
That's going to go out the window. So, but you still do plan a little bit. You know, I remember I did a movie with Oliver Stone, and the scene took place in the kitchen, right? So I came in through the kitchen door, boom, and then I started talking. That's how it was scripted on the script. And when I got to the set, they wanted me to go through the front of the house, and the house was huge, and it was like a mile to get to the kitchen. You know, so now all the dialogue, all my planning, everything went out the window. Yeah. And the minute if you don't let it go, if I don't let it go, I freeze.
You freeze.
I freeze. So I gotta let it go and just figure it out as we go. So and that's been the case probably 90% of the time, that you have to let it go. That's my experience.
That's funny, because I'm just getting to that place in my career where I'm being able to let it go. I started out on the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Was my first real acting. Every actor on the show was stage trained actors. So in order to compensate for not having any formal theatrical training, I would learn the screenplay inside out and backwards. I memorized other people's lines, everything. And I got into an over-calculating, over-organized mindset, and really just in the last 2 years am I like finding my way to just let it rip, to just get comfortable and let it go on set and let it
You
rip.
look pretty comfortable playing Ali, bro. You did
Yeah, I
a
know.
terrific job. You look pretty
Listen,
comfortable with
I
that.
almost drove myself crazy
Yeah.
with that when the level of.
I've always wanted to talk to you about this. Ali is one of my heroes.
Yeah.
Top 3, for sure. And you know, and it's a tough
Yeah, that was
gig to take.
terrifying.
Because he's filmed.
Absolutely.
He is who he is, and I thought you did a terrific job.
Thanks, man.
Terrific. And also, even in the boxing, you know, like his.
Yeah.
All that stuff you got down to
Michael
a T. And I've
Mann.
never seen you since, you know, we met in passing, but I wanted to tell you how much I enjoy your performance.
Thank you
in
very
that.
much, man.
And
Thank
it's
you.
on the page now. So, yeah.
Thanks for watching Actors on Actors. Click to the left to watch our conversation with Bryan Cranston and Jason Segel. Click to the right to watch our full conversation with Samuel L. Jackson and Michael Keaton. And don't forget to subscribe to Variety's channel.